The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, everybody. Greetings, coming to you cordless. It's Tuesday night, December 9th, 2025. It's 9:01 on the East Coast of the United States and 6:01 p.m. on the West Coast. And here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 1 minute past 8 p.m. Central Time. I am Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 301. We did 300 on Wednesday, and it's Tuesday. And we didn't have a show on Thursday, and we didn't have one. Well, we ran a rerun last night. So, so Murray Sabrin was supposed to be our guest last night, and we were taping his interview in the afternoon, and he didn't show up, and it turns out that was because we had our signals crossed, and he thought it was tonight. So we interviewed both him tonight and the scheduled guest for tonight, too. We have two guests tonight. Peter Lumaj is coming on. He's running for the Secretary of State position for the state of Connecticut. And that's not actually the reason I wanted him on. I wanted him on because he and his brothers escaped from communist Albania in the 1980s, and that's basically the story of my family too. My family escaped from Albania also. So that was really that piqued my interest, and we had a very nice conversation, which we taped this afternoon. And you're going to hear that first, and then you're going to hear from Murray Sabrin, esteemed economist, Professor Emeritus of Finance from Ramapo College in New Jersey. That's what we got going on tonight. So we got a double. That's what I call it, double guest. So next week, now we're taking the rest of the week off again too. This is long planned. My mother is having her Christmas party tomorrow, and if you know anything about my mother, if you watched the show before, she's 101 years old, and I don't think that, I don't know how many Christmas parties are going to be left. So I'm going, and I got to drive across the state of Minnesota to do that. So we're spending the night. So we're blowing off both tomorrow night and Thursday night. We'll run reruns, of course. And then, but next week, the week before Christmas, we have a full slate, all 4 nights. And let me tell you that is. I can do that because I got technology. Also, I should tell you, here at 8:01, now 8:03 p.m. in Minneapolis, we're having just a terrific storm. It's snowing so hard. It's freaking unbelievable. This is just amazing. We have had basically the earliest winter we've had in at least 25 years. And this started the day before Thanksgiving, and it's basically been snowing ever since. And that never happens around here. I still remember, I'm not kidding you. I still remember about 10 years ago, roughly 10, 12 years ago, on December 23rd, it was 72 degrees and I wore shorts. That's the day before Christmas Eve. Not only did we not have any snow, it was balmy. I still remember that. And then it snowed the next day on Christmas Eve. I remember that. And that's kind of typical around here. Usually around Christmas Day or Christmas week usually is when it starts to snow. But here was the day before Thanksgiving. And the terrible thing is not just this wasn't just a one-off. We've had snow. We've been dumping snow ever since. And the temperature's terrible. It's the high on Saturday here is not supposed to crack 0. Unbelievable. This never happens this early. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm telling you that because if the power cuts out here, obviously the show is screwed. So if our power cuts out, which is very possible, you're going to be in the middle watching nothing. Tomorrow or Monday, we're coming back on Monday. Our guest on Monday is Jonathan Lockwood, military historian and author. He comes on the show regularly talking about U.S. military stuff, and we'll talk about the negotiations on the Ukrainian war, and also probably some of the narco terrorist stuff that's happening on Venezuela too. I'm sure we'll probably talk about that. Tuesday, Gregory Wrightstone is back for a second appearance on this program. He's the executive director of the CO2 Coalition, and they think climate change is bullshit, and I do too. And he will tell you, he's also a geologist, he's a trained scientist. He will tell you why, because I can tell you why, but I'm just some goofball, and so you don't want to hear it from me. That's why I bring the scientists on. That's Tuesday. Wednesday, Corinne Clifford is making her second appearance on the show. She was only on about 2-3 months ago, and I kind of want to make her a regular. She's a White House reporter, independent, but she's in the press room on a regular basis. I don't know if she's there every single day, but I think she goes there most days, if I'm right. Also, just a pistol of a woman, fantastic conversationalist. She knows all the inside scoop and everything. She's coming on Wednesday. And Thursday, Leslie Corbley is making her second appearance on the program. I think she was on this summer. She's an author, and it sounds like an oxymoron, but she's a conservative poet, is what she is. She's an attorney living in Utah, if I'm right. And she just released a book on October 21st called Progressive Prejudice: Exposing the Devouring Mother. And it's pretty much what what it sounds like. This woman's just fascinating too. She told the story the last time she came on how at the Texas State Bar, she was at the convention or something, and somebody found out she was a poet. They asked her to read a poet to the convention, and it was this anti-abortion screed, and she says she almost got kicked out of the bar. Because when you ask, poet, you say, well, you're expecting kind of somebody liberal, and no, not here. Not on Jim Peters night. You're not going to get that. She's a fascinating woman. I specifically asked both Corinne and Leslie to come back. Both of them. They're both really fascinating people. Great conversations. So anyway, yeah, got a full week now. And next Thursday her appearance is going to be our last show before Christmas and New Year's. And then we're taking 2 weeks off, and we're coming back on Monday, January 6th. I don't know. Do we have a guest for January? Hold on a second. Let me check. Do we already have that booked? No, we don't. It's January 5th. My apologies. January 5th. I thought it was January 6th. Excuse me. But that's what we got going on here. So I'm trying to get some sleep tonight while it's snowing. It's been crazy cold. It's just like you don't want to hear about it. I bitch and moan about the weather here for damn good reasons. It's really nice here 8 months of the year. The other 4 months of the year, and this year might be 5. I mean, they're already saying we're going to have a very severe winter, and it's already started. But at any rate, enough about me. So, who's next? Peter Lumaj, attorney and candidate for state attorney general Secretary of State for the state of Connecticut. He's next. Stay tuned. Joining us from his office in Manhattan, 2026 candidate in Connecticut for Secretary of State and good all-around patriot, Peter Lumaj is joining us. Hi, Peter. How are you?
Thank you for having me. How are you?
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, I was just telling you just before we started here, before we went on, there's a particular reason I wanted to have you on here, and I've talked about this a little bit on my show. This is the 301st episode about the fact that I'm an Albanian. Well, my father is an Albanian immigrant. I'm a first-generation American. But like you, he has a particularly startling story to tell. So you want to tell us about how you came over here?
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm fascinated to hear the fact that you're an Albanian American, or at least, first generation here.
Yeah.
Look, 38 years ago, my brothers and I escaped communist Albania.
Oh, hold on. I got to stop you. How did you escape specifically?
Oh, we had to escape at night. Pretty much, we winded up sneaking out of Albania. We walked over the mountains for 72 hours to make sure that the border guards wouldn't catch us. And at one point, as we confronted them as we were crossing the border into what used to be Yugoslavia, they tried to kill us. They shot at us, and we were just lucky for, God's grace, and we survived that. But they wanted to kill us. 2 weeks before my brothers and I escaped Albania, they killed two other young guys, and one of them was my classmate in high school. And they dragged them through the town behind a military truck, trying to frighten and terrorize anyone who would dare to take that trip, if you will, or dare to escape communist Albania. And we decided to do that because we wanted to search for freedom and opportunity. And fear meant nothing to us at that time, because when you are enslaved by your own government, and we were enslaved, if anybody else tells you that under socialism and communism, you're not enslaved, they are not telling you the truth, because we were told what to do, what time to get up, what time to go to sleep, what to work, what schools to attend, what kind of food to eat. We were told or dictated by the government every aspect of our lives. So when we decided to do that, we couldn't even discuss this with the parents. So we left 7 siblings behind, my parents, my father, my mother, nieces and nephews. And the moment we escaped, government agents showed up, they rounded up my family. They took them to a concentration camp, and they tortured my father to death because he had failed to notify the government, but his sons, us, wanting to escape Albania. And they killed him. And I always tell people that my father was willing to die for my brothers and I so we could live in freedom. And when I hear people in the United States promoting that evil ideology, I always tell them, I've seen that movie before, and I don't like the ending of it. They killed my family. They took my family to a concentration camp. And hundreds of thousands of people from Eastern Europe, including Russia, and you name it, will tell you the exact same story, that this ideology, it's evil, and we better defeat it in the United States and not allow it to spread. The Cubans will tell you the same thing. The Chinese will tell you the same thing. The Russians will tell you the same thing. The North Koreans will tell us the same thing. And yet in the United States, we have brainwashed people through the educational system that they are embracing the exact same thing that has driven millions of people out of Eastern Europe and other countries to search for freedom. Just think about this. No one from these countries escapes from Western world and goes into these countries. We see people from communist countries and socialist countries escaping and putting their lives in danger to come to the Western countries where we have freedom and opportunity. And it really perturbs me when I see Americans embracing this ideology.
Peter, I'm skipping ahead here. So why? Okay, and we should explain just for people who completely don't know about this at all. Under Enver Hoxha, basically, roughly from the 1930s to 1992, not only was Albania communist, it was probably the most extreme communist country on the planet. I mean, Hoxha was he fancied himself a theoretician, and he was constantly bashing China for being too lenient, which is something, and that was Mao Zedong, and people found that amazing. But I'm skipping ahead here. Why is it that after well over 100 years of trying this, I understand maybe in 1917 why somebody would look at socialism on paper and say, well, that might be a pretty good idea. Let's try that. But like you said, it's been well over 100 years. It's failed every single time it's been tried. It's made people miserable. And why are people still trying to do this again? Why?
I think that we have failed to educate our people in the United States. Our public educational system is a complete failure, is a propaganda machine, if you will. I used to work for the Board of Education in New York City. I did background investigation for the teachers and other employees over there. And one thing that shocked me with that was that none of these employees who worked for the Board of Education sent their kids into public school. All of them send them to private schools. That tells you what kind of failure that system is. And I raised that question at one point during a meeting. And I said, if this educational system is so good, I said, how come your kids are not going to this, attending these schools? None of them had the answer. They had the answer, but they wouldn't make it public that the school is a failure. Our educational system, the public educational system is a failure. And we have been providing this sort of shaping our students and the younger generation into these little communists that America is bad, capitalism is bad, Constitution is bad, Judeo-Christian values are bad, and we have taught them into sort of believing this. And when I hear this from American-born citizens that if we can try it one more time, maybe we can do a better job than Russia did, or USSR did, or North Korea did, or Albania did. Enver Hoxha, as you said that, when he came, established communism or socialism in Albania, he started with communism. And, what he did, the first thing was that he promised everybody everything.
Yeah.
Promise couldn't be kept. Then he started taking or confiscating the property from the rich and the middle class. Eventually, everybody became poor. Then he started using brute force to make sure that no one disobeyed his orders. So by using that, he started arresting, imprisoning, torturing, and killing anyone who disagreed with him, including members of my family and other families, obviously. Then, if that didn't work, he opened up concentration camps, and part of the concentration camp was the re-educational camp, where they would send people for 6 months to re-educate them. And what that meant is that you had to learn how to love the leader of Albania, which was Enver Hoxha, a communist leader. And if people disagreed with him after the re-educational camp, they were declared to be mentally disturbed, or they had mental problems, or they were taken into mental institutions. This is how severe it was. We were told to stand online to get a loaf of bread. And if the store, which was government owned, ran out of bread or cheese or you name it, you couldn't complain about it. If you didn't like the bread and you said something that I don't like because the cornbread is not good, you could have been arrested and charged with agitation or propaganda against the government. People do not understand how severe, how evil socialism and communism is. This is what American educational system has failed us completely, because they should make this comparison between these systems. We have a system established in the United States through the Declaration of Independence, which clearly declares that we are endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We are the only country in the world that we have that. And we should not allow the government to either adjust these rights or interpret them otherwise, but for the fact that we are endowed by the Creator with these rights. When the government gives you rights, we should always understand that they can modify those rights, they can adjust those rights, and they can remove those rights. So under socialism and communism, we have government-given rights. Under capitalism and the form of government that we have, the Republican form of government in the United States, we have God-given rights. Just compare those two. Which one is more powerful?
Yeah.
A God-given right protected by the Constitution, or a government-granted right which can be removed at any time the government decides to do so.
And so you mentioned the fact that, and I just find this just hilarious because it comes up constantly. It's never been done right, but that's better. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it right. We can. No, you can't. No, wrong. You can't do it. No one's ever going to do this right ever. It doesn't work.
And look, if I may, last night I attended an event in Eastchester, New York, and a friend of mine who's an attorney, first generation American-born citizen. He's a prosecutor in Michigan. He's running for Congress. I was impressed when I heard one thing about him. He said, "Look at the Bible. And the words or the expression, 'be not afraid,' is repeated 365 times. He said, we should not be afraid to stand up to this evil ideology called socialism. And we have to stand up to this and cheerfully face or confront these people who want to import this ideology into the United States. One of the biggest problems that we face, I would say, since the 1960s or even 70s, is that we're bringing people to the United States from countries who are not compatible with our values. Those people are coming over here. They do not respect the Constitution. They do not respect the founding documents of this country. They do not have our Christian values. They come here, and the moment they become American citizens, somehow, some of them are turning against the United States and sort of trying to implement in our country the values that drove them out of their countries. I'm like, you escaped that, hole, as Trump would say. Why would you try to implement that in the United States? And we have elected officials, including Omar, including Ocasio-Cortez, including Bernie Sanders, who are openly socialists, who are serving in the United States Congress, and they are promoting those values. Where did you go wrong? We went wrong somewhere. Arnold Toynbee years ago said that great civilizations are not murdered, they commit suicide. We are committing suicide in the West by importing third world countries into our country and allowing them to implement the values that have failed their countries, and they are going to destroy United States and the West unless we stop this.
I forgot to tell you, Peter, I'm actually sitting in Elon Omar's district. I'm in Minneapolis. Our studio is literally in her district, so
Wow.
I know all about this. So you said something there, just offhand. It was about the fact that oh God, what was it? Forget that. I want to get back to your thing about the education system. So why are the teachers? Is this like almost, have we gotten to almost a second generation thing? Why do the teachers think this stuff is kosher? Why do
Well,
they think this?
it's all about politics. It's all about command and control. Just think about this. If you introduce, and there was during the time that I was running for office in Connecticut, I said that if I become the governor of the state, let's say that I said I would introduce a bill that says money follows the child. The teachers union was up in their arms because of that statement. Because I said, if we have a public school that is failing, the parents should be able to take that child from this failing public school into another school, whether it's a parochial school, there was a private school, religious school, to make sure that the kid gets the proper education. The biggest resistance that we get is the teachers union,
Of course,
which is one of the biggest communist associations in the United States besides the Democrat Party. And
yeah.
it's all about command and control, because once you have a generation who was raised or who is raised with this kind of understanding of Americanism, it is easy to control them. Everything that we teach our kids nowadays is apologizing for being white, apologizing for being American, apologizing for being Christian, apologizing for being straight, apologizing for loving your family, apologizing for loving the United States of America. We're just tired of it. Charlie Kirk got assassinated because of that. Charlie Kirk was recruiting people into the church more than the Pope was doing. Charlie Kirk was recruiting people into the Republican Party more than Donald Trump was doing. And they saw him as a threat, and they assassinated him after they failed to assassinate Donald Trump. And this is something that I think Americans should examine it properly and take it very, very seriously. If they could do this to Donald Trump, the current president, and they can do this to Charlie Kirk, they would do that to my kids and your kids and anyone else's kids if they disagree with them. These people and this ideology, it's evil and must be identified, located, and obliterated once and for all.
So do you think the teachers are actually being controlled? Do you think this is like a second generation thing here?
Absolutely. My daughter is a teacher, and she's in Westport, Connecticut, one of the, I would say, the richest towns in the United States.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
when I put a sign in front of my house supporting Donald Trump, she came over and she said, Dad, can you remove that sign? Because the school district that I'm in can fire me if they find out that you're supporting the president or support Donald Trump for president. And I removed it because I didn't harm my daughter. But
Right.
then I said, my father was willing to die for me so I could live in freedom. I said, I'm willing to do anything to make sure that you are protected and defended over here. And she said, let's not go that far because these things are happening. And they have this mindset that if you disagree with them, if you disagree with the left, just think about the language that they use. The first thing they will tell you, if you disagree with them, I'm a racist, I'm a sexist, I'm a xenophobe. I was called personally anti-immigrant. I said, I'm an immigrant myself.
Really?
I during
Oh yeah,
during
you're
a debate on
anti-immigrant, all
TV,
right.
and I'm like, how can I be anti? I said, I'm
Peter,
one of
that's one of the funniest things I've heard in a long time. That's
you know.
nuts.
This is how far these people have gone with their reasoning. You disagree with them, you're this horrible human being. As Republicans, we don't think that the Democrats are bad people or evil. We think that they are misguided. They think that we're evil because we disagree with them.
Yeah.
And they would kill people because of this. And this is, we have gone too far with this. I mean, the Democrat Party is not the party of JFK anymore. It's not even
No,
the party of Clinton.
no, it
If
isn't.
they were, I mean, JFK put America first. He was willing to, he was today's Republican, if you will. And we have gotten to so far on the left that it jeopardizes your safety if you disagree with these people. And this is not good for the future of this nation. Absolutely is not good from my point of view.
I still know some sane Democrats, but they seem to be left and left all the time. And let me ask you this, because this is really fascinating to me. 20% of the Democratic Party is flat out crazy. They're nuts, but they've taken over the party. I don't understand how this has happened. I still know people, very sane, reasonable Democrats, like you're talking like the Kennedy Democrats, but there's less and less of them all the time. And even though they're still in the majority, they do not control the party. How did this happen, Peter?
Well, if you go way back, I mean, every time that a authoritarian or a dictatorship was established anywhere in the world, it was by minorities within a certain party. The majority was silent and did nothing. Whether you go to the Nazis, not every German was pro-Nazis, but the minority who believed it sort of silenced the majority. The communists, the same thing. Most of Albanians didn't want communism, but the minority who loved it, they imposed it upon the majority and they silenced the majority. The majority is going to have to stand up. The majority of the Democrats in the United States are commonsensical people like you and I. They want the same thing for this nation as we do. They want the same thing for the families as we do. They want lower taxes, safe neighborhoods, clean neighborhoods. We want, the local government to function. We want, the garbages to be cleaned and the water to work. These are simple things that we want. But
Right.
above all, we want the government to leave us alone. The
Yeah.
Fourth Amendment that says, leave us alone, pretty much. That's what it is. We just want the government to leave us alone. But the minority within the Democrat Party, they want the government to be part of every aspect of our lives. And they have a lot of work to do within the party to stand up to these crazy ones on the left who are trying to take over the Democrat Party, and they are doing it. I mean, Chuck Schumer is afraid of Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
Just deal with that. He's afraid, and a lot of people, a lot of Democrats within the Democrat Party, their leadership is afraid of these left-wingers who openly claim to be socialists because they know they are going to primary them, and somehow they're finding support within their party, and it baffles me. I don't know why it's happening, but it's happening.
Well, I think I would say it's happening because of what you were talking about earlier, that the education system is basically producing socialists, and then these socialists get to be 25, 30 years old. And also, if you're living in New York City, it's expensive as hell. And then you wonder, well, how do we fix this? Well, let's try socialism. Well, let's not, but that's what's going to happen. I mean, Mamdani is there. He's been elected. And I think that's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Well, this is where the Republicans should step in and fearlessly point out that the reason why New York City has become so expensive, or other cities, it has to do with the failed liberal policies. It has to do with the fact that the left is preventing you and I and ordinary folks from creating wealth and equity, which is a God-given right. And they do that by currency depreciation. They do that by prices, inflation, you name it. It's a very well prepared, a very well executed leftist movement to make sure that people are prevented from creating wealth and equity. And if you don't create wealth and equity, you have to depend on the government. But we have to point that out. And this is the argument and the debate that the Republican Party and the Republicans should fearlessly make and get out there and point out that the failed liberal policies are the cause of the standard of living that you face in New York City or California, for that matter, or Detroit, or wherever you go. You see these policies that have failed and should not be allowed to spread all over the United States because they have failed these cities and they would fail us as a nation.
A lot of people need to have this pointed out. Capitalism is a very flawed system, but it's the least flawed of all of them. And also, it's very important. It's the only system that actually creates money. I mean, that's the problem. Socialism, when any other system, you're going to eventually you end up broke. It's a famous thing that Margaret Thatcher said, sooner or later you run out of other people's money. And you do. That's the thing. I mean, that sounds like kind of a joke, but it isn't. That's actually true.
It's true. And the biggest threat to the Democrats or to the liberals would be if you have liberty through prosperity, or vice versa, whichever you choose. Because if people are in a situation where they are stable financially, they don't need the government, the Democrat Party would become obsolete. The Democrat Party sustains its existence on the people's misery. The more misery they create, the more they need this permanent underclass that depends on the government.
Yeah.
Rush years ago would say that, listen, you establish a permanent underclass, you will establish a voting bloc. And the Democrats have been doing a pretty good job doing this. But us as Republicans have to point out that, listen, you're depending on the Democrats. If the Democrats can feed you, they can starve you. And we saw this during the time that we were discussing the SNAP program and the shutdown of the government, where they said that people are going to starve. Why are people starving? Because the government is controlling their food. I've seen that movie before, and I don't like the ending of it. The government shouldn't have control over our lives. Otherwise, we're going to turn this nation, this beautiful, great country that embraced my family and I 38 years ago, into just a country, not the exceptional country that we're supposed to be. And the exceptionalism comes between when the relationship between the government and the governed, we are the absolute, or we have the absolute power as the governed, the voters, to control the government, not vice versa, the government controlling us.
Yeah, you went to law school. You know, there's a thing called natural law, which is basically the same thing as saying rights from God. You know, it's like, so you went to law school in Cordova, is that right?
Cardozo, Benjamin Cardozo, yes.
Yeah, New York City. Yeah.
That's,
So,
that's
you escaped from Albania, and then you came. Did you come here ASAP right away?
No, we were taken or sent to a refugee camp in what used to be Yugoslavia, and we stayed there for 9 months. During these 9 months, we had to submit ourselves to a background investigation. We were fingerprinted. They took pictures of us. They took all that information to the American embassy, and eventually, someone from the American embassy came over and interviewed us. We had to go actually there. They made
Yeah.
an appointment. But before we were interviewed to make sure that we're going to the United States for the right reason, we needed a sponsor. And until we found a sponsor, we couldn't come to United States. Nowadays, what we have done, we have diluted the fact that you would go through a lot to come to United States to become an American. We are enticing people to come to United States, not for Americanism any longer. We're enticing them to come here for the benefits. And I remember when we landed at JFK, there was a social worker who approached my brothers and I and asked us to sign papers to join welfare. We didn't know what welfare was. So Tony, my oldest brother, said, "What's welfare?" And they brought in an interpreter, a translator. And they said, "Well, the government will help you." And my brother said, "No, no, we didn't come here for government handouts. We came here for the American dream. We don't need that. We had lots of government in Albania and we left it behind. We don't want to deal with that again." And we never embraced that kind of lifestyle. But yeah, it took us about 11 months altogether to come to the United States before they processed us properly to come here.
Are your brothers still with us?
All of them, besides my father, who was killed in Albania. He was tortured during that time. My mother is here. She's 93 years old. She's an American citizen. The first time she's ever voted was for Donald Trump. And she said, "I'm going to vote for this guy." I said, "You know his name?" She said, "Yeah, you can pronounce it for me. I'm fine." My entire family is here. We have no one else left over there. For the past 38 years, I have 33 people in my family, including nieces and nephews, and through marriages who graduated from colleges. We have people who are lawyers, I mean, family members. We have doctors in the family. We have engineers. We have businessmen. So we're living the American dream. And when I tell people the American dream is here and we're living the American dream, and we try to instill that into our kids, that look, with all the problems that you think that America may have, or capitalism may have, or constitutionalism may have, it is the best political system that we can have for so far. When the founding fathers debated for 70 something days what kind of system they're going to give us, they could have given us a democracy. They said, absolutely not. They could have given us kingdom. They said, absolutely not. When they came up with the Republican form of government, they wanted to make sure that the God given rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, are protected and defended by the government. So, in other words, they gave the government enumerated powers. They told the government, you have certain powers. The rest of these powers are left to the states or to the individual. So they limited the government. All the other systems, they give the government unlimited powers, and the people have limited powers. So
Yeah.
the fathers were geniuses when they gave us this Republican form of government.
Oh, it's a once in a millennial, I mean, once in human history type of thing. What they came up with is absolutely astonishing. It really is. You know, the interesting thing about you talking about your family, about from personal experience, I would say Albanian Americans are particularly driven people, aren't they? We're ambitious.
We are. I remember when I was going to college and I was taking political science. I wasted my time for 4 years, but then I said, let me go to law school. At least I can get a job. Uh, you know, I was working 7 days a week. I was going to school, college, in the afternoon. And I would walk from a place called Morris Park in the Bronx all the way to Lehman College. I didn't have a car, and I didn't complain. I didn't whine about it. And I said, I'm going to do this. And when I ran into American-born kids, they were telling me, why didn't you drive? I said, I don't have a car. That's why I'm not driving. I'm walking because I cannot afford a bus. And I'm happy I did it because I know that my kids are doing way better than I'm doing, and I hope their kids will do better than they are doing. And we gave them the foundation to live the American dream through hard work, determination, honesty, and Americanism. And we embrace that. Albanian Americans are proud to embrace the values that we find here. And sometimes people claim that we are too pro-American. I always tell them, look, I'm an American, not too pro-American, because I live here. My family lives here. My mother lives here. Everybody lives here. I don't have anyone to claim that I have connections overseas besides my memories when I was in my teens. And, it is what it is. We have chosen to come here. And look, sometimes Albanian Americans and others like you and I, we sometimes are more Americans than American more born citizens
Yes, I
because
agree.
I'm an American by choice. I could have gone anywhere in the world as a refugee. We had options to go to Canada and Australia and other countries, but we chose to come to America. And I remember when I completed the application to come here, and I had three options: where do you want to go? And I wrote down United States, United States, United States. When I was interviewed, when I was interviewed at the U.S. Embassy in Belgrade, he said, "Why did you choose the United States three times?" I said, "I don't want to go anywhere else. I just want to go to the United States." And we were determined to come here and embrace and be assimilated into what we found here. Nowadays, we have people coming to the United States who are not compatible with these values that we have. And instead of assimilating and embracing our values, they want to impose their values that they brought here upon you and I and our kids. And I just disagree with that. They shouldn't be allowed to be here. If you don't like it, it's a one-way ticket. You can leave anytime you want. We don't care. America doesn't need me. I need America. America doesn't need immigrants and refugees. Refugees and immigrants need America. When
Yeah.
Ray said, to see the greatness of this country, sometimes we should use the eyes of refugees. We see the greatness of this country, and we want to make sure that this country remains great because it's the last beacon of truth and freedom in the world. And if we lose it over here, where else would we go?
I'm going to bore you for a second with a story of my family because it just addresses what you're just talking about right now. My father had me when he was 52, and I'm 70 now. So he came over here at 17 in 1920, 105 years ago. He joined his brothers. They started a business. He ended up in a small town in Minnesota. But I still remember him telling me very vividly, told me the story several times about him buying his first suit, $15. He went to the tailor, but the reason I'm bringing that up is because my family, like exactly what you're talking about, they wanted to be Americans. They wanted to assimilate into American culture. And right now we have a problem, just like you're talking about. The reason I'm talking about this is we have people are coming over to the United States who basically want to turn the United States into the country they left. And I'm having to, especially because of my family background, I have a very hard time with this. First of all, like you said, it shouldn't happen. It won't work. And secondly, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to you left somewhere and now you want to turn into the same place you left? Well, why did you leave in the first place?
Well, the beauty of the United States is that we do not impose values upon people. You come to the United States, you want to maintain your culture within the confines of your household and your society. It's perfectly fine. But stop imposing that upon us. The same thing with the educational system. When they are telling our kids that there are more than two genders, for example, they told my daughters there are 15 genders.
Yeah.
And then my daughter came home and said, "What do you mean 15 genders?" I said, "No, there are two. It's a boy and a girl. That's all it is." I said, "God given, created these things and that's it."
Yeah.
But then you have the United States Supreme Court nominee who had a hard time defining what is a woman, and she's a female herself. This is what we're doing with American youth. We're confusing them. We're confusing them with Americanism. We're confusing them what it means to live in America, what it means to be American, what it means to embrace these values, what it means to assimilate. I mean, years ago, it was the melting pot. parents came over here, grandparents came over here. They said, okay, this is America. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that we create the foundation and we give our children, grandchildren, generations to come an opportunity to live in freedom, an opportunity, and make sure that they succeed. Nowadays, we're being told that all these cultures are somehow one and the same. No, they are not. Because our culture, the Judeo-Christian culture, produces everything. And we should be fearless when we talk about these things. They produced everything. But don't tell me someone who came from Somalia that we should impose their culture upon your family and my family, knowing what they left behind.
Yeah.
Because now it's easy to verify where you came from, what I came from, what we left behind. And if they love it so much, as Trump said, please, you can leave. We're not forcing you to live in this country. But look, is a challenge that I think we're going to face for years to come. And thank God that we got Donald Trump to be the president of the United States, who's fearlessly, and I love that, he's fearlessly embracing Americanism. And this is what we're missing. I attended an event, and I don't know if I told you last night, when this guy who is running for Congress, who was fearless when he spoke about embracing the values that we have, a young guy, and that gives me hope because he referred to the Bible. He said that the expression "be not afraid" is repeated 365 times in the Bible, and there's a reason for that. He said we should not be afraid as Judeo-Christians. We should not be afraid because we are on the right side of history, and we should fight for it, and we should be willing to embrace it fearlessly and cheerfully and promote it within the United States and anywhere else in the world. That is the American values that we are defending, and we shouldn't have any problems making this argument, as I said, cheerfully with a smile, but is an argument that I think has produced results for the American people and even for the world. We don't see countries that are leaving socialism and are trying to become more capitalistic. Actually, they are doing better than us as Americans. They are telling us, what are you guys doing? We have seen this. We have tried this. It doesn't work. And yet we see certain people in the United States and even leaders in the United States wanting to embrace the exact same thing that the rest of the world is trying to run away from it.
Well, a lot of people said, Peter, that people want to do it because they want to control people. And that seems to be a human, some sort of human desire. I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. Do you have any ideas? Why do people want to control people? I don't understand.
Look, it's the human nature. I mean, if the leaders were angels, we wouldn't need laws. Unfortunately, leaders they sometimes turn out to be what they are, humans, and humans have the tendency of enjoying controlling other humans. Unfortunately, we have seen that happen in various parts of the world. But then, as I said, the founding fathers were geniuses when they said that we're going to limit the power of the government, because the government that has unlimited powers, that government has the power to control you and I and every human being. And I think that, we have to be careful as we approach the transitions that we're going through. Look at the Democrats. Every time they talk about the American system that we have, they will tell you that we live in a democracy. Is it democracy? Is it democracy? No, we're not. We're a Republican form of government. There are approximately 4,440 words in the United States Constitution. The word democracy is not mentioned anywhere. There are approximately the same number of words on the Declaration of Independence. The word democracy is not mentioned anywhere. It is a Republican form of government. And what that means is that above us is a law that all of us must obey and will apply equally. And we're losing that. We're losing that. We shouldn't lose that because it has served us well so far. And if we maintain that, it's going to serve us well for generations to come.
I forgot to mention to you, my mother's actually from Yugoslavia. And the interesting thing about that, Yugoslavia was an interesting case. And you said you spent some time there after you escaped. About Marshal Tito is basically held up as the sterling example of a benevolent dictator. And he was, but he was like the only one.
I didn't know you and I have so much in common. Yeah,
we do. I know. But the thing is, no, that's the interesting thing about Tito is that, he was the exception to the rule. The only reason that worked is because he was a benevolent dictator. He was. But how many dictators are benevolent? I can only name him in all of human history.
he he had a good understanding of the human nature.
Yeah.
And I never got to know him, obviously, because he passed away years ago. But the fact that I lived there, I've seen how Yugoslavia functioned until he passed away. Then Milosevic came to power, whoever came to power, and sort of destroyed that nation. It was a
Right.
beautiful nation. And Tito was willing to give ordinary folks the ability to live in some sort of freedom under some sort of government control, but
Yeah.
they the ability to travel. He allowed them to go to the Western world, to go to Germany, to work abroad, to come back and invest. I mean, he allowed them to exercise with a limited, within limited thing, but to exercise their God-given rights. That you can do things better than the government does. But at the end, they destroyed that country too
Yes, they
because they
did.
moved way to the left. And
Right.
it's a beautiful. I lived there. It was a beautiful country. You visit it nowadays. Last time I was there a couple of years ago, has changed completely. They are at this point, I mean, killing each other, hating each other. And when you look at them, what they are, the Kosovars, the Serbs, the Macedonians, you look at them, there is no difference. You wouldn't know who is who. But then yet they emphasize everything that you and I are discussing over here. They emphasize what separates them. And if we keep on doing this in the United States, that we emphasize that an ethnic group in the United States is different from another ethnic group, we're balkanizing the United States. And we can see those results materializing in the United States unless we have a way of telling people, you come here, you assimilate, you become an American. There is no difference between Americans. And we have to maintain that cohesion because otherwise we're going to weaken that. And if we don't have the so-called border language and culture to maintain a nation, we're going to lose that. Balkans lost it. And Yugoslavia, as
Yeah.
you said, was a beautiful country. They lost it the moment Tito wasn't there.
As soon as Tito died, it fell apart, basically.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know. He
Absolutely.
held it together with his force of personality, nothing else. Yes, it was it was technically communist, but it was a strange start of communism. But I do it.
One thing he never did, not to interrupt you, but one thing he never did, he never shut down the churches. You could go to church, and
Right.
I was there and
True.
I've seen it. You could go to church. So one thing that he valued was that he allowed people to believe in God, to embrace their values, their faith. And when you believe in God and you allow people to believe in God, you have some sort of fear that there is something greater than me as a human being. And I think he understood that. And
Yes.
the fact that he understood that, that separated him from Enver Hoxha, who shut down the churches in 1967 and declared Albania an atheist country and replaced God with the government.
Right. Yeah. Well, like I said, he was a singular person. That's never happened before or since.
Yeah,
And actually, and getting back to what you're talking about here, let's talk about Europe itself. I mean, this strategic plan just came out from the Trump administration last week that basically said very forthrightly that if Europe doesn't change its ways, it will literally lose its identity and fall apart. I mean, I feel. Do you feel that's true? I think that's true. I
Sure.
find what's going on in Britain just appalling. Almost don't believe it.
This whole thing goes back to Amy Pope and the Obama administration years ago when they said that Amy Pope is now in the United Nations, but she worked for the Obama administration. And what she said and Obama said is that we're going to have a proper distribution of the world population, whatever that means. So what they did, they are flooding Europe with people from Middle East and countries from Africa who have nothing in common with the European culture. They are imposing those values upon the Europeans now. The over 2000 history of the European continent is being lost. I was there this summer with my family. We were in Italy and traveled all over the place. But you will see the changes that are occurring there. My brother-in-law lives in UK, London. I've been there many times. It is not what it used to be.
Right.
His daughters are afraid to go outside in the neighborhood because of the culture that they brought in or imported, telling them that you shouldn't dress certain way, shouldn't walk certain way, shouldn't walk by yourself. This is not European. And I agree with Trump that unless they change the way they're handling immigration and importing people into their countries, they are losing. We're losing Europe. And if we lose Europe, we're talking 2,000 years of history. I mean,
Yeah.
1929, there was the last time that they were pushed back out of Europe, or 1912, around that time. There was a war that we had to fight with these, this culture. This is something that is not European. And if United Kingdom and France and you name it, you go to these countries, you don't feel that you're in Europe any longer. You're either Middle East or Africa. You have people that have, I mean, nothing in common with the 2,000 or 2,500 years of history that we inherited in that continent and is being destroyed. So I agree with you. Yeah, we're losing it.
Not only that, it's not just cultural, even though that gets most of the attention. The economies are going to hell. I mean, Germany is almost on the verge of bankruptcy. It's terrible.
Look, we're facing the same thing in the United States right now. If you look at the immigrants who come to the United States, about 40% of them are receiving some sort of public assistance. 38% of every incarcerated person in federal prisons right now, they are non-American citizens or illegals. We're spending about $70,000 a year to maintain them or to keep them in these prisons. We're losing that too. And when people tell me that if we deport illegals, the price of your cherries is going to be higher, well, guess what? At least the price of housing is going to be lower. The medical, expenses are going to be lower. Crimes are going to be lower. So I have no problems with that. But the same thing applies to Europe. The majority of people who are going to Europe right now and in the United States are not going there because they want to become Europeans. We're enticing them to move into the Western countries for the benefits that we offer them. I mean, you have people traveling through a number of countries to make sure that they arrive in UK or Germany where the greatest social benefits are offered. They know what they are doing. They do the same in the United States. If they go to Texas and they don't get certain benefits, they want to make sure they go to Northeast, they go to New York, they don't go to California, they go to Connecticut. I mean, if you live in Connecticut right now and you're illegal, you get a driver's license, we have sanctuary cities, you get in-state tuition if you go to UConn. But if my nieces and nephews who live in New York decide to go to UConn, they pay out-of-state tuition. We are penalizing American citizens and pretty much punishing American citizens. This is wrong. And this is what European countries are doing, the exact same thing. And we're going to pay a price unless we come to our senses and stop this. It has to be stopped.
Well, I think that we might, well, you tell me if you agree. I think we might be coming to our senses, but I don't know, Britain or Europe might be lost. I hate to say it. That it might be too late. So,
well, I was watching the Interior Secretary of the United Kingdom a few days ago. Is a female who actually is trying to stop this, and she's not a native Brit, if you will, but she sees this as a threat herself, and she said we have to stop this. I think that UK is coming to his senses because, and I hope they do. But when you have 30% of, I think it's about 40% of the population in London right now that is not British any longer, and is imposing values on the Brits over there and pushing them out. This is a concern that we should have in the United States if that's were to happen over here. And as you said, I mean, we have towns and if you go to Dearborn, Michigan right now, and I was there very recently, it's not an American city any longer.
Oh, I understand that. Right.
If you go to Hamtramck in Michigan, and I know that town very well. It's not an American city. Certain parts of Minnesota are not American cities any longer. What did we do wrong over here? We shouldn't allow this to spread. If people want to come here, embrace our values, Americanize yourself, welcome to the club, be an American, but stop imposing your values and your way of life upon us. United Kingdom is going to have to do the same thing. France is going to have to do the same thing. Western countries are going to have to do the same thing. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. And look, this is not a conspiracy. These are numbers, and people should pay attention to this. White families, like our families, we have 2-3 kids. They have 10 kids with 3 wives. When Obama passed the law, extended families law, and was an executive order allowing people to come from Middle East with 2 or 3 wives with 15 kids, that in the United States should be illegal. We got a 1 wife, yet we allowed them to come here because that's their religious belief. That is not compatible with us. It's happening all over Europe. And they are taking over certain cities. And, there are great concerns that they have. And I agree with President Trump that unless they stop it, we're going to lose those countries.
Peter, you're running for Secretary of State in Connecticut. When's the election? Is that November?
Yeah, it's next year. It is next year, November of 2026.
November, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it like being a candidate?
Look, I I had the opportunity to travel all over the state, and I love it. We have beautiful towns. I meet a lot of people. It's a challenge, no question about it. I may be a little too conservative for my state, but I'm not going. I'm not backing down on my conservative values. I always tell people that, look, if you want to board an airplane, you need a picture ID. If you go to a liquor store and you want to get a bottle of wine, you need a picture ID. You go and see a doctor, you produce a picture ID. Why shouldn't you produce a picture ID when you vote? Why shouldn't we prove that you're an American citizen when you vote? Why shouldn't you prove where you live when you vote? Why shouldn't why shouldn't we have some sort of territorial and legal jurisdiction over the people who are in our state to make sure that they are legal residents? Yet there were 36 allegations of voter fraud in our state, and besides one that turned out to be a Republican, all of them were Democrats. Democrats accusing each other in our state of voter fraud. We are approximately 1% of the U.S. population, yet over 10% of voter fraud allegations emanate from our state. So this is something that concerns me, and I want to make sure that each and every one of us should be entitled to vote if you're an American citizen. But if you're not an American citizen, you shouldn't vote. You shouldn't be here. That should be a felony. We had a guy who got elected in one of the towns in our state.
Bridgeport.
He turned out being illegal.
Yes.
He won the election.
I know. I know. You couldn't write a comedy that bad.
No.
I mean, you couldn't.
Just think about it. The guy's illegal, shouldn't be in the United States, and gets elected to city council.
Yeah.
You had a judge in Bridgeport ordering the Democrats to hold primary for the second time. That's how bad the voter fraud was in that town. I mean,
well, that guy, the mayor from Bridgeport, if I'm right, got thrown in jail, and he spent a couple of years or something, and he came out and ran again.
7 years. 7 years.
And they elected. Supposedly, they elected him again. I don't know if they actually did, but
they did. They did. He's the current mayor.
No, I know, but what that election was pretty shady, wasn't it? I mean,
oh well, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, Ford is known for that. But Joe Ganim went to prison on federal charges for 7 years, got out, rehabilitated, ran again, and won again.
Yeah.
Go figure. I mean, that should be illegal. I mean, if you were sentenced and convicted and went to prison for voter fraud, and you come back and you run again and you get elected, there is something wrong with this system.
But the real scary part, Peter, is that people voted for him. I mean, that's the thing I don't understand. And absolutely no disrespect to you at all. I think you're the exception here. The majority of the people in the United States who run for office are basically losers, because nobody with any real accomplishment wants to do these jobs. And I look at you as an exception. And I also appreciate the fact you're standing up for what you believe in, even though it's a largely liberal state too. I do. It's like that's not easy.
There are three groups of people who run for office. You have the Democrats who did this for a living because they have no other jobs, and if
they don't.
They will start collecting, from the taxpayers.
Right.
The Republicans who, even if they lose, they have a job because they work. And then you have the ugly people who think that politics is acting for ugly people, and I'm one of them. I'm ugly, and I think it's acting.
No, you're not ugly. No, you're not.
The truth is that you have a lot of people who are really dedicated to making our state better. I've seen Democrats do that. Not all of them do, do it for other reasons. I've seen Republicans who are very, very much dedicated to doing this. And I appreciate when I see people stepping forward to run for office. It's a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
From your family. It's not easy to ask people for donations. It's not easy to make an argument. You have people who disagree with you. You have people who dislike you. But I think that both the Democrats, the majority, and the Republicans, I firmly believe they do it for the right reason. I still believe in our system. I still do.
It's still the best. That's all there is to it. I mean, you can complain it has its flaws, but it's still the best.
Yes, it is.
Peter, I want to thank you for joining us today. I really enjoyed talking to you. I really
absolutely
keep in touch. Maybe we'll have you on one more time before the election. Okay.
Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you and your family, sir.
Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you. joining us from his home in, I'm going to get this right, Naples, Florida, right?
That's correct, Jim. The
You moved,
Sunshine State.
you moved from Fort Myers, so I can't, got to keep that straight. I'm old, Murray.
We're
Murray,
both old. We're both old, Jim.
no, you're not. You look fantastic. Let's go through your credentials. You're the former economics professor emeritus. No, you're the current economic professor emeritus at Ramapo College in New Jersey.
Well, it's actually finance, Jim, not economics.
Thank you very much. And I was going to say they named the finance center after you, right? The
The Sabrin Center for Free Enterprise.
Right, the Sabrin Center for Free Enterprise. And then you're the author of seven books, and we're gonna
all right here,
all right behind you, and we're gonna talk about at least one of them. How have you been doing?
Well, I've been having this persistent cough. It seems that people from overseas have been coming back to our development and coughing up a storm. So I may have caught something from one of the residents here. And it's just been very annoying for the last 4 weeks to just have this coughing spell. But it seems to be getting a lot better. And I've never been sick for more than a few days. And this has been just really incredible to have this persistent cough for 4 weeks. It's like I have COPD or
Yeah.
I've been a smoker for all my life, which is not the case.
It's also just annoying, right?
Oh, it makes sleeping very difficult. So then you're tired for the rest of the day, and then you want to go sleep in the middle of the day. So it's a never-ending cycle of trying to stay awake, not have your sides hurt from all the coughing. But again, these are things that we go through no matter what age you are, that you get hit with something and then it takes time to get it out of your system.
And do you know why they call me the Prince of Segways? Because I'm going to talk about another never-ending cycle, and that's the economy.
Yeah.
And that's why you're here. All right, so here's the deal, Murray. I keep reading all sorts of contradictory stuff. People say, oh, the economy's doing great. Then I hear, no, it's doing crap. No, it's like prices are up, prices are down. Inflation's good, inflation's bad. Where are we right now?
Well, the economy is a mixed bag. It depends on where you are in life, because there are people that are doing extremely well. I mean, the housing prices here in Southwest Florida are still very high. I mean, the median price, I think, in my area is like $600,000. So there's a lot of money coming to Southwest Florida from other parts of the country, from overseas. Gasoline prices have come down quite a bit.
Yeah, that's true. They have.
Right. That's the good news for people who have to travel long distances to work. Food prices are still elevated. Rents are sort of stabilizing because there's been a lot of building when interest rates are very low, courtesy of the Federal Reserve. And so what we have is a very mixed economy. There's one indicator that is really, I think, pinpoints the difficulty of the economy. That is, manufacturing jobs are declining. Historically, when manufacturing jobs start to decline, that's usually the beginning of a recession, because it means manufacturers are not confident about the future of their businesses, and therefore they're starting to lay off workers today. And I think we're going to see more of that as time goes on. On the other hand, you have the AI phenomenon, and you have this building, these construction all across the country for AI centers, which take a lot of energy. So you're seeing utilities expanding their infrastructure, and automobile sales seem to be sort of floundering. EV sales are declining because of the ending of the tax credit for purchasing EVs. Housing seems to be pretty steady at this point. But again, I look at the economy from the individual perspective, because it's where you are in life that determines what your standard of living is. And for people who are working, saving, investing, and having a modest lifestyle, they're doing quite well. It's people who are being squeezed. Let me tell you something about the inflation rate, which is really a phony number. You know why, Jim? Because it's a number that's sort of an aggregate of a basket of goods and services. But from an individual perspective, the official inflation rate right now is just under 3%.
Right.
I can tell you from personally, next year, my inflation rate will be well over 4%, because we just got a 4.5% increase in our monthly fee for the facility that we live in. So that is a big number because we're paying a very high maintenance fee for our apartment. So from that perspective, my inflation rate is almost 2% higher than the official inflation rate. So again, when I look at it, in addition, my Social Security is being cut substantially because my Medicare premiums are going to go up quite a bit next year because we had a very good year financially in 2024. And the way the Medicare premiums are based upon, they're based upon what your income was 2 years ago. And so here's another example of how the government tries to do good, but it's really a fraud when you think about it. And we can do a whole segment, a whole show on healthcare and Medicare and Medicaid, and these
we do need to point out you wrote a whole book on it too.
Well, I wrote 2 books on healthcare, and my conclusion is very simple: get the government out of medical care, and prices will come down. We have too much insurance. We're overinsured. We're over medicated, and the doctor-patient relationship has been basically undermined by the insurance companies and the government. And so we really need a free market. The free enterprise system is the best system to deliver goods and services for people at affordable prices that most people can pay for. And we have another part of the economy that helps people who are in a financial need, and that's the nonprofit sector, which I've been writing about for 35 years. The nonprofit sector is the sector of the economy that helps people pull themselves up, let me use a cliche, by their bootstraps to become financially independent. That's why I created the Mafia movement, make Americans financially independent. We're coming up to the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, which gave us political independence. And a corollary of that, I think, for reading the Declaration, was financial independence. I don't think the colonists, Jim, fought a revolution so we could have a welfare state in the 21st century, which started in the 20th century. The American colonists were individualists. They believed in individual liberty. That's what the Declaration is all about: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That has been corrupted since the New Deal, because the government took the responsibility of, quote, managing the economy.
Right.
And it's made a mess of it. And the thing that's keeping the economy afloat, which I've been writing about on my Substack for years now, is the men and women entrepreneurs. I have a wonderful book on my bookshelf back here. It's called They Made America. There's not one politician in that book. It's all about the men and women entrepreneurs who invented, who created, who innovated, who make life better for us. I mean, from a simple thing as a thermostat. Could you imagine if we didn't have thermostats in our homes, how inefficient it would be in the heating season and the cooling season, not to have a thermostat? A windshield washer. How important is a windshield washer on our cars so we could drive through the rain, the snow, what have you? I mean, there are so many little things that have improved our life. The vacuum cleaner, my goodness, without a vacuum cleaner, Jim, the chore of cleaning a house would be really difficult.
Right. I'm obsessed with vacuum cleaners.
I love the vacuum. We have a wonderful Shark vacuum.
So do I.
And they're great machines. They pick up the stuff on the carpeting, on the vinyl floor. There are so many things that we have around our house that have been made possible by entrepreneurs, not the government. The internet was created by the government, but it was really the private sector that made it, commercialized it, so we can have this discussion online. I mean, years ago, we couldn't do this. Now we can speak to people in Australia, in Russia, in China, in Japan. It just shows you that the cost of communicating has gone close to zero, which is amazing when you think about it. You remember when long distance service was incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Now you can call on a WhatsApp all around the world for nothing.
Right.
I mean, and this is another example of how the free enterprise system, the free market, entrepreneurship is making life better for the average person. And it's the government that's mucking everything up, and the politicians keep on mucking it up with their taxes, with their spending, with their regulation, with their endless wars. I mean, the list goes on, Jim. And that's why I'm predicting that we're going to have a major financial crisis down the road because of all the spending, all this debt, and all this money printing.
Well, we can't avoid one, can we? I mean, we have $37 trillion in debt. At some point, isn't that going to bite us in the ass? I
Well,
mean,
it's now 38 trillion, and it's increasing at roughly $2 trillion a year, if not more.
that's nuts.
This is the difference between now and 1929. 1929 was strictly a financial crisis where the stock market and real estate prices had gone through the roof because of the cheap money that the Fed created during the 1920s. Now we have the Fed and the federal government spending like there's no tomorrow. And we've never had a government this big in U.S. history. We're spending over $7 trillion a year, which is a mind-numbing number. The average person can't get their head around it. Who deals in trillions? Who deals in billions? Who deals in hundreds of millions? The average person deals it in tens of thousands of dollars,
Right.
maybe a couple 100,000. And if they're lucky, they have a high income of $500,000 or more. But these numbers are so staggering, Jim. The expenses are so staggering that it's difficult to sustain this without having a major crisis, because these crises come about because of unsustainability in spending. And the perfect example of this is what happened in Argentina for the last 90 years. Argentina was one of the best economies in the world before Perón got in and started spending money that they didn't have. The government ran deficits. The central bank bought the debt. That's called monetizing the debt. And they've gone through periods of hyperinflation throughout the last 90 years. And that's why Milei came in, because people were fed up with the Perón policies. And so the question is, how quickly can he get the economy in Argentina back to, quote, normalcy, which is low spending by the government, spending and saving and investment by the private sector, and getting rid of all the bureaucracy in government. I mean, think of the Department of Education, Jim. They don't educate one child. All they do is take money from taxpayers and ship it back to the states, local governments, and school boards. Why do we have that type of system? The tax code. I'm going to go on a jihad against the tax code on my Substack, because the tax code is probably the most burdensome, the most counterproductive, to use a polite term, institution that we have. Because why should paying taxes be more complex than paying your cell phone bill or your cable bill?
I don't know, Murray.
I mean, there's a whole section in the Wall Street Journal today about the tax code, how they keep on changing the tax code. It's ridiculous, Jim, that the tax code keeps on changing every 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah, and then my accountant, she can't keep up. You know, it's like you got to keep up on these laws and rules. It's mind-boggling.
My tax return for 2024 was about 60 pages.
It's crazy.
It's like a small telephone book in rural America.
Yeah, right. That's right.
I mean, the sales tax is probably the most efficient tax we have, if you want to use that term. You pay it at the point of sale, no paperwork, no nothing. You just pay for it, and that's it. And then the retailer sends it to the tax department in your state. It's pretty seamless. But the point is, the tax code that we have today, the income tax code, is probably the most despicable institution we have, and that's why I'm calling for the abolition of the income tax and getting rid of the 16th Amendment. And the American people, by keeping their own money, will allow them to reach what? Financial independence, because the more money they have, there's less of a need for them to rely on government programs for their basic needs. And that's the issue that we have, Jim. No one wants to talk about it in Washington. All they really want to talk about, Jim, is who will best manage the welfare state. That's the debate they're really having in Washington. They're not saying that. And as far as healthcare goes, medical care goes, the government has no responsibility in that, according to the Constitution. There's nothing in Article 1, Section 8 that says the federal government has to be involved in medical care. I mean, it's an absurdity that we think that the government is going to provide us with medical care at reasonable prices. You know, when I was a youngster, medical care costs were pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Doctor visits were $5, $7, $10, no paperwork, no copay, no insurance forms, no nothing. You get a prescription, you go to the local pharmacy, there's no insurance, you pay for the prescription, and that was that. And when my father needed an operation in 1961, Blue Cross Major Medical paid for it, and there was no problem with bankruptcy or anything like that. This is before Medicare and Medicaid. So if you look at the cost curve of medical care in the United States, it really started accelerating after the introduction of Medicare and Medicaid. So we have 60 years history of Medicare and Medicaid since 1965. The Federal Reserve has been pumping in trillions of dollars since then. And together, they've given us the highest medical care costs in the country. And one of nearly every $5 spent in the United States is devoted to medical care costs, which is an absurdity.
Yes,
We should be spending no more than probably 10% of our income on medical care, if not less. The only thing we need insurance for in medical care is for catastrophic coverage. If we need a major operation, and even that can be handled through surgical centers like the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, which charges a fraction of what the hospitals do.
One of the things, though, when it comes to medical care is that Americans are now, all Americans, even middle-class people, expect like perfect health care,
Yeah.
you know, and so there's one of the reasons, I mean, I'm trying to defend the industry here. One reason the prices have gone up is because if you need, like, for example, an MRI, people take for granted the fact that MRI machine costs like $10 million. It's this is extremely high-tech technology, and everybody wants access to it. So, I mean, that's one reason prices have gone up. But on the other hand, I know you're right. The insurance, the way the whole thing is structured is that basically the insurance companies make out like bandits. That's basically.
Well, let me give you an anecdote about MRIs. I attended the conference of the Free Market Medical Association, which is people in the medical field, in business, that want to have a free market medical system.
When was this? When did you go?
This was about 3 years ago. And one HR manager said the local hospital was quoting MRIs for $4,000. So he contracted with a company that brought a van or a bus or whatever to the parking lot of the company, and they did MRIs for $400, a 90% discount from what the hospital was charging.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if we could reduce costs by 50 to 90%?
And that's, you know, that's amazing, because that's a perfect example of somebody using their head. They don't have to buy the machine, you know.
Right.
It's in a van. The van comes, you pay the van or whatever it is, you know, for the day, whatever. You don't have to expend the $10 million, you know.
The thing is, the private sector is the most efficient sector for the very simple reason. If you can't satisfy your customers, you're going out of business.
Yeah.
It's that simple. That's why you've had, there was an article in a local paper today that there are 5 Sears stores left in the country. Sears was one of the most well-regarded retailers in the United States, and now they're basically extinct. It just shows you, if you cannot meet consumer needs, you're going out of business. And we saw this in the dot-com boom in the late 90s and early 2000s. We're going to see it in the AI situation. Some companies are going to go out of business in the next 5 to 10 years. We've seen this in the automobile industry, the airline industry. How many retailers have gone out of business? The Radio Shacks of the world, the Montgomery Wards. I mean, many.
Murray, Sears is a good example. I've talked with several people on the show the last few months about Sears, about the fact that they should have become Amazon. You know, they basically were the Amazon of the mid 20th century with the catalog business, and so the you know, this is kind of off topic maybe in a way, but the reason it's come up on the show is because, you know, that so after about 100 years, it seems like corporations in America get so complacent they basically forget what they're doing, and then some upstart comes and takes their business, which is exactly what happened to Sears. Amazon basically replaced Sears.
Well, that's the beauty of the free market, is that if some companies don't meet consumer needs, they're going out of business, and other companies are coming in. Who knew Amazon 30 years ago, when Jeff Bezos started, was going to become this behemoth in online commerce? I mean, no one thought that. And look at Netflix with streaming services, and Apple with the smartphone and laptops, and the list goes on of companies that started with nothing, just an idea, and they become. Look at Walmart. Sam Walton. He figured out if you build stores in rural areas initially, you're going to do well. Same thing with Costco. And these have become giant big box stores. Home Depot, another example of a company that started Lowe's at a very low level and grew into these giant retail operations. So again, we have example after example of how new companies come in and push aside the old guard that doesn't keep up with the changing consumer needs. But getting back to the problem we have today of affordability, it's all at the doorstep of the Fed. That's why my book is right here.
Yeah.
Why the Federal Reserve sucks.
That's right. That's what I wanted to bring. That's the
Federal Reserve is the engine of inflation. It causes the business cycle, the booms and the bust. It causes income inequality, and it enriches the top 1% in the nation because they're the primary beneficiaries of easy money because asset prices go through the roof, and they're the main owners of asset prices. So when people get on CNBC and the other talking head shows, they talk about income inequality, but they don't address what causes income inequality. There's natural income inequality. I earn, when I was teaching, a lot less than professional athletes and celebrities because they generate a lot of income for their employers, movie studios, and their sports teams. Income inequality is caused by the Federal Reserve flooding the economy with money. Prices go up, asset prices go up, and the wealthy people are able to buy $100 million houses. They're able to buy these $300 billion yachts. I don't begrudge them for that. That's the nature of the current system that we have, which is the Federal Reserve pumping money into the system. And by doing so, they cause asset price inflation. And that's what drives income inequality and wealth inequality in the country. So again, if the Bernie Sanders of the world, the AOCs of the world, and the other Democrats want to reduce income inequality, they should call for ending the Fed, or at least making the dollar as good as gold so the Fed can't inflate anymore.
So we have a budget of $7 trillion. We spend $7 trillion a year as a nation, and 2 million of it is hot, or 2 trillion of it is basically hot, right?
It's borrowed. Yeah, it's just borrowed. I mean, it just shows you that the politicians are not being honest with the American people, saying if you want these expenditures, you're going to have to pay for them today and raising taxes. And this is the sad commentary of our society. People want something for nothing.
Yeah, they do.
The politicians feed into that philosophy with that ideology by saying, we're going to give you all these benefits, but you don't have to pay for them. I mean, the federal government is basically one big money laundering operation. And by taking money from people who are earning it and giving it to people who don't earn much money or very little. And let me put it this way, Jim, so people in Washington and your audience can understand. We have a system of legalized theft. It's called taxation. We have a system of mass murder. It's called war. And we have a system of stealing from people through inflation called the Federal Reserve. Those are the three reasons that we have a problem in America, the welfare warfare state. And I'm addressing that on my Substack, in my website, mafiausa.com, so people can join the Mafia movement, so we can have the next 250 years of financial independence.
What was the address again? What was the address?
MAFIUSA.com, mafiausa.com. And it's a movement that I think hopefully will catch fire, because if we don't, we are going to see the mother of all financial crises down the road. I think it may be too late to stop it, because we got to take the medicine now. If we wait to take the medicine, it's going to be a lot worse. The patients could be a lot sicker, the U.S. economy. And right now,
let's get back to what you were talking about AI, because this is my thing. We do talk a lot about the show too. I think at least in the short term being 20 to 30 years, I think AI is going to cause massive unemployment, and people say, well, that's never happened with technology in the past, but I think this might be fundamentally different, because in the past you had, and I'm shaving differences here, but in the past you had technology that replaced certain jobs. AI has a capacity to actually replace people, and so because of that, I think, and I probably don't have to tell you this, there's a large portion of the population that basically has no marketable skills. I hate to say that's true.
Well, here's the thing, Jim. We need a lot of people that used to be a great career for young people. That's the trades, the plumbers, electricians, the carpenters,
Yeah.
people like that. They make good money. Uh, Car technicians. I mean, a machine can't do that. You need people to work on automobiles.
Yeah.
So again, we got to get rid of all these dopey majors they have at the colleges that don't provide any marketable skills to young people. And I think some young people are going to decide, hey, should I really take on all this debt to go to college and have a degree that doesn't give me a marketable skill and come out of college unemployed with all this debt? Or should I learn a trade that interests me, that I can get some benefit of personally and make a good living? And I think that's the issue that we have to face in this country, that there's always work that needs to be done by people, Jim. We cannot have a society full of robots and AI. It's just not going to work that way. You need people involved, whether it's in medicine or law or accounting or things like that. You still need people interacting with other people in order to have a good outcome in whatever the goal is. And so we have a lot of automation, as you know, in Amazon. They do a lot of robots there. The car companies have been automated for decades. And that's what's kept their costs down. And finally, some of them are starting to make a profit, like GM and some of the other car companies. But again, there's no perfection when it comes to human beings. Perfection is only in a baseball game when you have a perfect game. But when it comes to human beings, there's a lot of mistakes, there's a lot of flaws. And if we were perfect, we wouldn't need police. We wouldn't need any prisons, because people would have been adhering to the golden rule and the 10 commandments. But in the meantime, we have to speak out against bad policies, which I've been doing for 50 years. There are bad policies in Washington, which are getting worse and worse. And we don't need the government trying to micromanage the economy. That, I think, is the biggest flaw in Washington. Government cannot manage the economy. They couldn't do it in the Soviet Union.
Well, that's the thing. You're right. They couldn't do it. I mean, that's communist socialist stuff about managing the economy, and that it's never worked there. And if we're drifting toward that, it won't work for us either. Now, I mean, we're not drifting toward it.
It's accelerating when Trump is taking having the federal government take equity interest in corporations. That's socialism. If a government owns 100% of a company, that's full-blown socialism. If the government takes a 10% interest, that's quasi-socialism. So Trump is taking us down the road, which is dangerous, because what if you have a Democratic president down the road and say, hey, you know what? We need more affordable housing. So we're going to take an equity interest in the home builders so they can build affordable houses in America. This is the slippery slope of getting the government involved in the economy. It always leads to more government intervention. And that's the problem we're facing. We need to get the government out of medical care, out of education, out of housing. And we need to have money that is reliable and doesn't depreciate like the Federal Reserve has been doing for the past 100+ years.
Murray, I told you I'd keep this to half an hour because you might have a coughing fit. You didn't. I handed you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your message. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate the opportunity to reach your audience, and hopefully we'll reach a lot of people with this message that MAFI is the solution to our problems. Making Americans financially independent, we wouldn't need a welfare state if we had a free market, free enterprise economy with the nonprofit sector helping people in our community and getting rid of all the bureaucrats in Washington and all the employees that are unnecessary to have a vibrant, prosperous, sustainable economy.
And you said the website said MAFI USA, MAFIUSA.com, right?
That's correct. Somebody suggested it should be Mafia, Make Americans Financially Independent Again. So that would be real edgy. And
you made me laugh, Murray.
But the point is, if you buy the hat, you then become a mafioso. So think about that.
And people go to Amazon and search on your name, Murray Sabrin, on the screen there for your books. Murray, which book has sold the most?
I don't know that. That's a good question. Possibly my first one, Tax Free 2000, The Rebirth of American Liberty. That was published a little over 30 years ago. Actually, January will be 31 years. And I was on radio and TV back in the 1990s. talking about how we could have a tax-free America in the 21st century by downsizing the federal government. That book is more relevant today than it was back in 1995,
I
because we
bet.
certainly didn't have $38 trillion of debt. We didn't have the crazy money printing back then that we have now. And the government has just grown exponentially since the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to really have a national discussion about the size and scope of the federal government and the constitutionality of all the spending.
And you wrote a memoir a couple of years ago. I'm sorry, forgive me. What's it called again? I read it.
It's called From Immigrant to Public Intellectual: An American Story.
Right. And everyone loves the Federal Reserve Sucks book.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you can do that. Go to Amazon and search on Murray's name, and his books will come up. Hey, Murray, thank you. Appreciate it.
Great, Jim, and take care with all that snow and bad weather you're having.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for the reminder. I'll see you. Okay. Take care. That's our old friend Murray Sabrin. We've talked, I think Murray's been on various incarnations of this show I've done over the years at least a dozen times, maybe even 16, 17, 18. He was the very first guest on our very first show, and this is show 301. I was going to have him on 300 because I like to bring him back for the anniversaries, but we decided that was going to be just a goof-off show, and it was. So it probably wasn't appropriate. So here we go. Anyway, that's our show for tonight. I want to thank him. I want to thank Murray again. I want to thank Peter Lumaj for coming on. Fascinating considering the fact, especially for me, because his family and my family pretty much went through the same thing there in Albania. So great talking to him. He's running for Secretary of State in Connecticut next year, elections November of 26. And so that's our show, not only for tonight, but for the entire week. As I explained in the opening, I'm taking Wednesday and Thursday off because I'm going to my mother's Christmas party. She's 101, man. How many are there going to be left? So, and we're spending the night down there, and you don't want to know. But anyway, yes. So we're doing that. But next week we have a full week of shows. Jonathan Lockwood, military strategist, is joining us on Monday. We'll talk more about the current state of the war, the negotiations on the war in Ukraine. Tuesday, Gregory Wrightstone, he's a geologist, and he's also the executive director of the CO2 Coalition, and we'll talk to him about climate change or the fact that the whole bullshit about it is falling apart, which it should. Wednesday, White House reporter Corinne Clifford is going to be here. Again, second visit in about 3 months. I like talking to her. That's the reason she's coming on. I like her, basically. So we'll get all this. She's actually in the White House press room on a regular. I don't know if she's there daily, but she's most days she's there. So we'll get all the scoop about what's going on in there. And Thursday, Leslie Corbley is coming on. This is her second appearance too. She's an author and a poet. She's a right-wing poet, which you don't find very often. But her brand new book came out in October called Progressive Prejudice: Exposing the Devouring Mother, which you might just imagine from the title about what that's about. She's a fascinating woman and a great conversation. So I specifically asked for her to come too because we want to promote her book. So that's next week, all Monday through Thursday. And then we're taking 2 weeks off for the holidays and coming back on Monday, January 6th. So I want to thank you folks for watching always. Really appreciate it. Makes my life happy. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you on Monday, folks, the 16th. You take care, all right? Have a nice